Greetings, my name is Justin Wolfenberg, and you are getting ready to embark on a story form life experience. And I'll never forget 15 years ago when I was sitting in my first story form life. Halfway through it, I was like, this is going to change my life. This is not my normal Bible study that I had been through. Something was changing inside of me. I went to my wife and I said, we need to do this together. This is too powerful for me just to be alone. And since then, over the last 15 years, I've led over 100 of these, thousands of people, seen life change that I can't even quantify, so much of it, literally all over the world. Now, Storyform Life are happening. It's a powerful tool, and we are super excited to share that with you. So what is Storyform Life? What makes it different, and how are we going to interact with this story together? And the first thing we want to think about is we are going to experience this as a grand, epic story. The first line of the Bible is, in the beginning. That tells me something. That tells me God is getting ready to tell a story. So imagine you would open the door of the closet and step into the land of Narnia. And as you walked in, your eyes would be wide open. Every sense of sounds and smells and awe, wonder, things you would all be experiencing. That's how we're going to experience the story that God has written, and we are going to be guiding you through that. Often in the church, you'll study a topic or a one line or a certain narrow in on thing, which is great to do. But in Storyform Life, we're going to step back and look at the mural of the story, as if we're going from Genesis to Revelation. The whole story we're going to take a look at. And as we see the story unfold, pieces will get in line and you'll see and experience things that you never have before. And as we're wrestling through this story, one of the things that's different about it, it's not about just you gaining more knowledge, not about you just taking notes and learning something. We want it to go much deeper than that. We want it to go from your head to your heart, and your heart just represents your beliefs. Like, what is that core, deep down sense of what's driving you? And what I've experienced and many others have is, as you're experiencing the Bible this way, it's almost like taking away all this scaffolding. I know previously I had been consuming lots of Christian books, lots of podcasts, things of those nature. I found myself just quoting all these commentaries and being a little distant from the Bible, loving the Bible, but a little bit distant. And we're going to take away that scaffolding, and you're going to actually fall in love with God and fall in love with Scripture and the story that God has written in a different, profound, deep way. And what will happen, which seems odd for me even to say this, is that your faith will deepen, it will increase, it will grow. It will, like, something will happen to your actual faith as you experience the story in this way. And it won't necessarily just be learning new facts and figures that don't actually change your life. When your faith is impacted, it compels you to move in some way or another. As we're looking at going after our beliefs, not just increasing our knowledge, we're also going to be studying the Bible in the way it was actually written. It was written in a Hebraic or Eastern mindset. So it was written in a way, we grew up in a Western or Greek mindset. We grew up thinking like, okay, it has to be logical, rational, and it has to apply to me individually. That's how we were taught to read the Bible. That's why we're obsessed with trying to figure out, like, how do I make the creation story logical? How do I make it rational? How do I fit it in all these different boxes? But it was actually written in the Hebraic way, the Eastern mindset, which actually asks questions like, what are the themes? What are the values? What are the meanings of the creation story? We could get lost in some crazy argument about, is it 7 literal days, 7 epic eons? And we could actually miss the whole point of the creation story, which often happens. So we are not going to try to answer all the rational, logical questions of the story, but rather we're going to experience the story. Like, imagine watching a movie and letting that movie touch your heart to the point of where tears run down your cheeks because something that in the core of who you are was stirred and rattled and moved in a way that made you want to run through a wall. That's the experience we're going for. So if we're experiencing this story and thinking of it like watching a movie, what we don't want to be is like a bad date. Like on a date, on a movie, if you leaned over and you were like to your wife and said, oh my gosh, look at that camera angle. Do you think this person has this angle, lighting, this thing going on, and getting into some of the logic and the weeds of things would ruin the story. And often that can happen when we bring a very high intellect, logical approach to Scripture. We want these stories to capture, impact, push on our hearts. And if we are feeling it, if we are being moved to emotion, we know we're reading the story the right way. And so that's kind of what we're all agreeing to, is we want to come and experience this as a story, a powerful way to experience it, and not kind of bringing things that don't take us away from the story. There's some powerful stuff in there that you may have read right over your whole life. And so that's one of the things that will make story form life different. Another thing is when you go to church on Sunday, it's often the question you ask is like, what did you learn? But the reality is we do not make decisions based on our knowledge or our logic. Our life is driven by the beliefs, by the things we hold dear that we may not even be aware of. And so these stories have shaped our lives. At least for me, I use the Bible for salvation and morality. Those were the two categories that the Bible was helpful for. But the Bible is a story that shapes every aspect of our lives. Let me give you an example. In America, if you get a gray hair, how do we respond? How is that treated? It's more often than not treated as a crisis, a terrible day, the worst day of my life. I'm getting old. It becomes this terrible thing, and then we've got to cover it up and do all these different things. Like gray hair is a crisis in the American story. Compare that to the story in the Bible. In Proverbs 16:31, it compares gray hair as a crown, a splendor of wisdom. Gray hair is considered as one of the highest honors because you're at a place where you can give back and you've earned the right to share the wisdom that you have in your life. You're the hero of the stories. And so that story impacts how we live. I remember in our culture, the goal is for old people. We just kind of want to put them in a home and get them away from us because they're a burden. And then the old people don't want to be a burden. And so everyone agrees we should just ship you off somewhere else. And in our house, we started to think differently. We started to treat the grandparents as the heroes in our story, the ones who deserve the most honor. When my kids were young, they would run out to the car when Grandma and Grandpa would pull up and hug them as they were getting out of the door. And now that my kids are teenagers, the story hasn't changed. They love their grandparents. Their grandparents are special people in their lives. We've crafted, or God has crafted the story, and we believed it. It's a crown of righteousness in the biblical story. And whatever one of those stories you believe deeply impacts how you live. Let me give you another example. I remember getting ready to go to college, and many people would come up to me and say, Justin, this is going to be the best time of your life. And I was like, cool, sounds good to me. Animal House is like a documentary. Like, you're going to go and have so much fun. Oh, I'm so envious. I wish I could go back to those days where I had no responsibility. I could do whatever I want and just have fun. And so I bought into that story. That story shaped me. That's how I lived my college days. Now I look back at that story and with sadness. Why is the best time of my life past me, and when it was just all about me entertaining myself, me seeking my own pleasure, and I was the center of that whole story. There's a whole different story in the story of God. In fact, in the Hebrew language, they didn't even have a word for retirement. Retirement's just college again, where you get to live for yourself and do everything you want, and now you just have the money to fund it, But there's a different story that says, man, the best time of your life is when you get to look back and you're sitting at your table and your grandkids are there and you're continuing to work and shape the lives of your grandchildren or the people around you. It is a powerful, powerful story. Whatever story we believe shapes us, moves us, affects our actions. And as we get into this story, we'll see that the story God has written impacts every part of our life. I just gave a few small examples just to highlight the differences in the stories that we believe. So as I want to just recap this for us, right? We're going to be looking at this big picture of the story. We're taking away the scaffolding. We're going to really get down to the beliefs, what we believe in the story, and not just transferring knowledge. We're going to be wrestling and thinking and viewing this through the Hebraic lens. and seeing the themes and the values and the meanings. And then we're going to let this story shape us, compel us to action to live a different story. And we're going to contrast it to some of the stories we may be living in the American story. And as we're doing this, there's a couple things that make this unique. Storyform Life is designed to be a dialogue-based experience. We're going to be asking questions, talking, sharing stories. The root word of teaching is dialogue. This is not going to be an experience where we are teaching and you are taking notes. It is meant to be very interactive. And if you look at Jesus's life, whenever he was teaching, there was questions being asked, there was dialogue, there was pushback. That's the kind of experience we want, because that allows us to get down and wrestle with what we actually believe. If you're just taking notes, you're just gaining knowledge. We've got to be kind of chewing on our food, talking about it, going back and forth. And I've seen this happen so many times. When someone shares something across the room, it hits someone else on the other side of the room. It's just a very rich experience. So as you're coming, be ready to be a participant in this, just not a spectator. Another thing, as you're thinking about this, and I really want you guys to consider this, this is designed to be a high challenge experience. This is not for you if you just want to check the box and do another Bible study. This is for you if you are willing and you are open and you are ready to be challenged. You are in a humble place where you're saying, I want more. There must be something more than wherever I'm at right now. There's something more that God could be doing in our life. So as you're pondering this group and this decision, if you're saying, man, I don't think I have time for this, that's okay. Maybe this isn't the time for you. But if you're in a place where you are ready to be challenged, you are ready to go all in for God and see what is there, we'd love to have you come and experience this story. And we will guide you through in a way that could just possibly change your life.